Welcome to the Geekly. I'm Lex.
I'm Jules.
Today we're doing Orville Season 2, Krypton Season 2 Episode 3, and Swamp Thing Episode 5. Oh yeah, I did do a poll. Kind of a skewed poll because there were like 3 positive responses and 1 negative response, but how excited people are for the live-action Sandman, which I am totally stoked for. Like, I've been waiting for this since I was 15, and they've like teased it around and everything. Anyway, 38% of people out of 26 votes think I'm a nutter. Everybody else is pretty excited for it, so
I'm pretty excited for it as well.
Yeah, like I really hope they go dark with it and they don't do like a Lucifer thing with it and make it kind of corny and cheesy, because it is like a super dark storyline.
Fingers crossed. I mean, we think like Swamp Thing being cut out, it may last the season, they may do the same, but there needs to be darkness in this kind of the superhero TV world. And I mean,
it's coming out of Netflix, and Neil Gaiman is a producer on it, so hopefully it will be kind of true to form, because his projects that he's been involved in have been pretty good so far.
Yeah, okay, well, I mean, we're going to start today with something a little bit different. We are going to fan cast the MCU X-men roster. And
this suggestion actually came from fellow podcasters, Take a Knee for Marvel and DC, so that they wanted us to fan cast some stuff. So we're going to fan cast our ideal MCU X-Men teams.
Have we picked 10? I think we've picked 10 X-Men.
Picked 10 X-Men. We tried to go with like the most common. These may not be your favorites. My personal favorite is in there, of course. Gambit. You have to have Gambit. I was like so irate about the lack of Gambit in previous X-Men films.
I found this really challenging. I've come at this from so many different angles. I've had so many names I've crossed out. Partly gone for like an age structure. I've partly gone for sci-fi experience. I've also gone for in certain cases like for like with the original kind of X-Men, X-Men 2, X-Men Last Stand kind of roster. I found it challenging, but I think I'm happy with my group now.
Yeah, I think my group's okay. There are a few people I'd be like super excited to see them in these roles, but I realized doing this that I know very, very few actors, so my casting was basically me scrolling through lists on IMDb going like, I don't know if I like the look of that person.
Yeah, and it might be a bit of fun. We're going to put them both on Twitter later, do a poll whose roster you prefer. And next week we're going to cast the Fantastic Four as well, do a similar thing. Right, we should start at the top, presumably Xavier and Magneto.
So yeah, for Charles Xavier, I put Donald Sutherland.
Donald Sutherland,
yeah. I mean, I love him, and I think like he's got that sort of comical gravitas. You know, there's like a little bit of a twinkle in his eye, but he can be very, very serious at the same time.
I've gone for a kind of similar to Patrick Stewart level gravitas, quite stoic. Not unfamiliar with kind of Shakespearean works, and it would never happen in a million years, but I've gone for Daniel Day-Lewis. The only question is, do these men look good bald?
I think Donald Sutherland could pull it off. I'm not sure about Daniel Day-Lewis.
That was exactly my issue. I don't know what he'd look like bald. Might need some kind of like bald cap, you know, to get out the weird like shapes in his head. You never know. Well, I didn't go for kind of comic.
Well, like, I mean, Donald Sutherland isn't like comic. It's a kind of dry humor, which I really enjoy in people.
Yeah, I went British as well.
See that, like, I mean, I
don't know.
He's from New York.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I know that in the comics he isn't British, but I just liked the British.
Yeah, I mean, it always kind of bothered me a little bit that, I mean, like, I love Patrick Stewart. I love Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, but it did sort of niggle at me a little bit that he was British, and James McAvoy has played him British as well.
Yeah.
And yet Mystique is flat out American, and they grew up together.
Yeah,
different thing.
I'm aware of that. Yeah, and I'm. If people want to pick that up on Twitter, send some arguments in about it. Where maybe we could talk about it next week.
I mean, there is kind of an argument to say that some of the New England accents sound very British.
Yeah.
The history is wrong.
Yeah,
and it bugs me.
Fair enough.
All right,
okay, let's move on. Your Magneto.
So my Magneto is, of course, Jeremy Irons.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. I kind of went back and forth debating between him and Xavier, but I do tend to prefer Jeremy Irons as a baddie. Like, he's able to capture that, and I think he could get the subtlety of Magneto right. You know, like, I mean, Michael Fassbender has done a pretty good job. I mean, obviously Ian McKellen was amazing, and so I was kind of going for a sort of Ian McKellen-ish one. Because, I mean, ideally I would have Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen back.
There are several in this that when I was thinking about the first X-Men film, I thought it was the perfect casting.
Yeah.
One of them we'll come on to later was actually Cyclops. I thought James Marsden.
Yeah.
I thought he was bang on. And Famke Janssen as
Jean Grey.
Jean Grey, I thought, again, you know, kind
Yeah,
of bang.
I mean,
So
like,
it's difficult, isn't it? Sometimes
it
to pull
is.
yourself away from that, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, I had the same thing. I was just like, I could just write down the cast of the original X-Men films and be totally happy with that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not Halle Berry, but, you know, everybody else is pretty spot on.
Yeah. Shall I say my Magneto?
Yeah, who's your Magneto?
I went German. I think his heritage is German. I went with Christoph Waltz.
Okay.
Does villain incredibly well. He's obviously Blofeld in the recent James Bond films. He's got the bit of humour, but I don't really see, again, I don't see Magneto as a particularly humorous guy. I just think something about the accent, you know, we often get Germans, Russians, Eastern Europeans as kind of villains, and I think I like Magneto with a bit of an accent from his kind of heritage.
Who do you have next?
Well, you pick.
Oh, well, I went Mystique next.
Mystique.
So who's your Mystique?
My Mystique, I picked, obviously she's like a chameleon, you know, she's good at impersonating other people. I went with a woman that is actually good at impersonating other people. I went with Kristen Wiig.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought, you know, she's obviously got the mutant ability of like transforming, but maybe she, you know, the voice doesn't transform like the voice box, so maybe Kristen Wiig's, you know, she's good at impressions. Love her on Saturday Night Live. I like her Californian as well.
I went with Aubrey Plaza. I always sort of pegged her as like solely a comedic actor, kind of like Kristen Wiig, but watching her in Legion, she's done a thing where she plays several different roles, several different personalities come out, and she's quite scary when she wants to be. And so I just thought like she could really kind of capture that sort of quiet menace that Mystique has.
I like that. Is it kind of the similar situation with Orphan Black? Somebody being multiple roles, that kind of thing?
A little bit, yeah. The first character she played actually was killed. She was a patient with the main character in a mental institution. She was killed and brought into like this psychic area as a ghost, and different creatures have used her appearance as their kind of face. So yeah, she went from being kind of like the best friend of the main character to one of the baddies, and it's just, yeah, I was really impressed with her performance.
Yeah, I'll never forget the time Will Ferrell was accepting the Lifetime Achievement Award at the MTV Movie Awards, and she basically just she was absolutely wrecked, got up on stage, derailed his whole thing, nobody knew if it was a bit or not, and it just, nobody laughed, nobody clapped, it was car crash TV. That's pretty much all I know about Aubrey Plaza. But yeah, no, I think that'd be good casting, yeah. For next two, should we do Jean Grey and Cyclops?
Sure. Okay, so for Cyclops, I'm not a huge fan of Cyclops, and I kind of think of him as a very bland guy. So in my casting choices, this was kind of like, I went with a bland-ish actor, so I chose Josh Hutcherson from The Hunger Games.
Oh, yes, I know him, yeah.
He's got that kind of, like, all-American sort of look that I think Cyclops has. Maybe it's a little bit of typecasting, but I thought he could do the Cyclops role pretty well. And then for Jean Grey, I chose Natalie Dormer.
I like Natalie Dormer, yeah.
Actually, I did Anna Kendrick first, and then I came across Natalie Dormer, and I was like, oh my god, how did I forget Natalie Dormer?
Yeah.
No, like, she should be Jean Grey.
I don't like Anna Kendrick, sometimes.
Really? Like, I love Anna Kendrick. I think she's so small and sarcastic and funny. Like, she's just great.
I should start by saying, like, when I approached this, I wanted to make them an older team. Happy coincidence, Daniel Day-Lewis and Christopher Waltz, they're both 62, which I found out on IMDb. But I wanted the whole team to be kind of more X-Men 2, X-Men Last Stand ages than X-Men First Class. So I've gone with a slightly older Jean and Scott. And for Jean, Gillian Anderson.
Oh, that would be good.
She, obviously, we know
she would kill it.
She looks great with red hair, for starters. I think that's half the battle. I think this would be like a kind of...
And it's natural as well.
I think this would be a team up where, if you can imagine, like, the MCU coming out with an X-Men film, I want the X-Men to hit the ground running. I want it to be like an Avengers film. I want this to be a team of people that are well into their roles. This isn't their first rodeo. They're a little bit battle-hardened, and they come up against some, like, decent people. So Gillian Anderson...
David Duchovny for Cyclops?
It did enter my mind, but I thought, sadly, no. I went with Nathan Fillion. I went with a pair of, like, sci-fi, like,
basically
Hall
kind
of
of like
Famers.
sci-fi royalty right there.
Sci-fi royalty. In the comics, there are like love interests as well, and I tried to match them together. Initially, when I was going to go younger, I actually had Bryce Dallas Howard and Richard Madden, Rob Stark, for those who don't know his name. But then I decided, no, I want these to be older, battle-weary people. And yeah, like Mount Rushmore of sci-fi, the audiences would see them probably working together, maybe even being in love, and I think they would work well off of each other.
Beast, Colton Haynes.
Colton Haynes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I actually cast him originally as Cyclops, and then I changed my mind on that and went with Joss Hutcherson.
Yeah. When he's had, like, the bloodlust.
You can imagine him that's kind of what
out,
I was thinking, is, like, he's able to do kind of both sides of the character, and, you know, thinking about how sort of animalistic he is without any makeup or anything at all. And because he was also in Teen Wolf as well, and he played a werewolf, so he's kind of got, like, you know, beastie heritage in the background.
I like that.
And I really enjoy him, and Beast is one of my favorite characters, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna put one of my favorite guys in one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, when it comes to Beast, again, like the original X-Men,
Kelsey Grammer.
I mean, I think they got it bang on the first time, to be honest.
I mean, I do enjoy the younger Beast, and again, it's one of those roles where I can see, I forget the kid's name.
Nicholas Hoult?
Nicholas Hoult, yes. So I like Nicholas Holt's kind of younger version of the Beast, and I can see, like, his version of the Beast maturing into, like, Kelsey Grammer's diplomat version.
And this, again, was one I found quite difficult. I thought, do I go with someone that's believably smart, or do I go with someone that's believably, like, Beast?
Yeah.
And so the difficult bit about believably Beast is you look at them and you think, I don't see them as being a smart guy. So I went with kind of a double answer. I went with John Lithgow, but with Andy Serkis doing, like, a kind of Beast CGI. So John Lithgow, you can believe him being a kind of smart guy, but then I didn't see him being, like, a Beast guy. And then my other thought was, should I just go with the Beast guy? And that was, like, a Roman Reigns, like, out of WWE. I kind of failed on this one, I think. I just got half the brief, I think, with the John Lithgow side. And Andy Serkis has technically already been in the MCU as Claw, so...
What kind of next on my list is Gambit.
I reckon my Gambit's going to blow your mind. All I know about Gambit is the cartoon. He's a kind of slender, charming guy, got the accent, throwing playing cards out. I went with Louisiana's own Jared Leto.
Aww. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Like, I would be into that.
I mean, like
he's already going to be in the MCU with, where that's not really
it's
MCU.
It's the Sony Spider-Verse, and that was why I thought he would still qualify. I thought you might like this one. I reckon
I mean, like, that would actually
accent.
be great if, like... Yeah, because, I mean, he's an absolute chameleon.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know how many films I've been watching.
I mean, I really can't wait to see Morbius. I can't wait for a trailer for Morbius.
Mr. Nobody is the one that I think of all the time, because he actually plays, like, this, like, 100-year-old guy, and they've got him all in the makeup and stuff, and, like, he just nails, like, you really believe it's this old person, and I was, like, watching him, and I was thinking, I know those eyes.
Yeah. What did you think of the Channing Tatum kind
No.
of? Yeah, I mean, me neither. I didn't see that at all.
I'm not overly impressed with Channing Tatum's acting abilities. He seems like a nice guy. He's good in, like, fun comedies, like 21 Jump Street. I like, great, you know, I'm down for that.
For
but you know, something like Gambit, I mean, Gambit is kind of sacred to me. He's, like, probably my favorite Marvel character ever. I mean, like, my introduction to Marvel was the X-Men. Yeah. So I've got a huge fondness for the X-Men, and just Channing Tatum was just no.
It never really works for me either. The only thing I know about him is what I saw in the cartoon. Apparently people are really interested in getting his accent, and I was just thinking, okay, let's look for Louisiana, and I went down Louisiana actors, and there he was, and suddenly it all just clicked in my mind, and so I thought, yeah, let's go with Jared Leto. I knew you'd love it.
I do, and I would incredibly love it if, you know, Jared Leto was part of the DCEU, the MCU, and the Sony Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's
the triple crown. Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Who's your Gambit?
My Gambit is a little off the wall. I chose Dev Patel.
Patel.
I actually, it's kind of linked to my Nightcrawler choice, because I kind of went back and forth with both of them. Like, either one could be Nightcrawler, either one could be Gambit, and I finally settled on Dev Patel as Gambit. I mean, one, I think he's an amazing actor. I think he could get the kind of nuanced, morally gray Gambit-ness. He can kind of put on the swagger. Obviously, physically, you know, he's very slender, and Dev Patel, that's my Gambit.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one. Who's your Nightcrawler?
Cole Sprouse.
I don't know who that is.
Do you remember the Disney show The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody?
I'm aware of it, but I've never seen it.
Okay, the twins starring it were... I can't remember his brother's name, but Cole Sprouse... It was the Sprouse twins, basically. Okay. Cole Sprouse has grown up into a very sort of emo, gothy kind of guy. He's currently on Riverdale. He plays Jughead.
Okay.
And he kills it. I was shocked, one, that this was the same kid from The Sweet Life. When it was popular, I happened to be living with several children under 10, so I got to see a lot of this show.
Yeah.
And yeah, he looks completely different now. He's got the kind of, like, moody sort of thing. Can obviously do comedy. comedy. Nightcrawler I've always kind of seen as kind of a younger character as well, a little bit immature.
I have as well, yeah. I mean, I've gone like fractionally younger, not super younger, but yeah.
I mean, he's like in his 20s at this point. Yeah, so Cole Sprouse.
I, again, don't know much about Nightcrawler. He seems kind of a bit like not of this earth in some of his like mannerisms and things he does. So I thought about who is an actor that's quite prominent now, who basically, it's like they're from a different planet. The way they talk, the way they act. I'm not talking like in films, I mean in their real life. I went for Rami Malek.
You know, when you said,
yeah.
like...
Have you seen? He's from a different earth. He does these like Snapchat videos or like Instagram videos. It's like as if he's got like an earpiece, people are like, and this is what a human would do. And this is what a human would say. And it's like he's trying to make eye contact. And like, I don't know if you've seen Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby, he's like, he's having these interviews after he does races. His hands just like creep up the screen like towards his face, and he's like, I just don't know what to do with my hands. And he's like pulling them down. He's just seems like not of this earth. I think it would be, that was all I went with, really.
I could see him as that, like throw some blue paint on him, give him a tail, like he could definitely do that out of step Nightcrawler thing.
Yeah, that was kind of the only angle I went with for that one. I mean, I don't think we've got many left. We just got one left. No, we've got two left.
Two left.
Storm, and then we'll end with Big Dog.
Yeah, my Storm is Shanette Renee Wilson. She's currently on The Resident. She was briefly in the first scene of Black Panther. She was one of the Wakanda guards.
Okay.
Yeah, she is just... I mean, The Resident is kind of... It's a mess sort of show, but it's got a lot of really great actors on it, and she is one of them, and she just, like, she kills the performance. She's very sort of stoic, but also, like, you get these, like, little glimmers of humor and stuff, and I think she would just be a really great Storm, you know? She kind of embodies that, like, very sort of strong, confident woman who isn't going to take shit from anybody, and she's absolutely gorgeous as well, so, you know, win on all sides.
Win on all sides. For my Storm... basically the exact same reasons as you. Very talented, currently doing a lot of really good things. Miss Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Nathalie Emmanuel.
Initially, you know, I wanted the actress who plays Okoye, whose name I cannot pronounce. She's also Michonne on The Walking Dead, and she's a total badass. Yeah. But she's already in the MCU, so I couldn't cast her as Storm. I
thought Nathalie Emmanuel was a real... I don't think I'd seen her in anything else before Game of Thrones, and just, I loved everything about it, except I thought they gave her a horrible ending. I think she deserved far better. I think she's kind of earned her role at like a bigger table now, and I just like to see her kind of stretch her muscles a bit. Okay, Wolverine.
Wolverine.
This one
was hard because like, I mean, Hugh Jackman is Wolverine to me. I don't care what other roles he's been in forever and ever now. He will only be Wolverine to me.
Yeah.
So this was a bit difficult, and I think Wolverine's sort of a difficult character to cast anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing about Wolverine is he's 5'3", and that's what a lot of people don't realise. He's 5'3", and for him to be such an integral part of Marvel and the comics Avengers is a real testament to like the character, you know. He's got amazing adamantium skeleton and adamantium claws.
He's got the dorkiest costume as well.
Like. Yeah. And so I think Hugh Jackman like 6 foot something.
Yeah.
I actively tried to get someone shorter. I went with someone that I just can absolutely see them being the Beast. That was what I went for. I didn't want to do like the duality of him like Old Man Logan or what we saw in Logan, of him being like a paternal figure. I just wanted somebody that can be the Beast and can be like unleashed on people, and you could absolutely imagine, you know, being beside Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, being beside Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, someone that a real big name, and just someone that let's fucking go and kill the Kree or, you know, the Skrulls or whoever's like, you know, thing of the week. So I went with 5'9" Tom Hardy. I know obviously he's a huge element of the Sony verse, but until that's kind of brought into the fold, I thought he was fair game. That's it really. I can see him like bulked out. I can see him wearing the claws. I can see him kicking a lot of arse.
So I went with kind of... I didn't really think too much about the duality. I went more kind of thinking sort of grizzled, jaded, kind of maybe misanthropic sort of guy. Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Fuck. That's a great shout.
Yeah.
That is a really great shout, yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, I love him in everything. Like, he was great in Supernatural, he's great in The Walking Dead.
Watchmen.
Oh, I mean, he like
Watchmen
pops up like all over the place. He's very versatile. And yeah, I mean, I could see him being Wolverine.
Yeah, but for a long time, they thought if Flashpoint happened in the films, he was cast as Thomas Wayne, so he would be Batman. in Ezra Miller's Flashpoint film, and the biggest tragedy of that not happening. And it's just, you know, I'm going to go off on a little DC tangent here.
Don't we always, though?
The short-termism of what they are doing over there is just disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And for us to have lost out on maybe even Ezra Miller as Flash, that's terrible. To not get a big screen Flashpoint.
I really loved Ezra Miller's Flash. I know some people weren't as fond of it. I think a lot of people are really into Grant Gustin's Flash, and fair enough, he does. Yeah, he's a good Flash, but he's a CW Flash. I don't think he's like cinema level Flash.
You know what's funny? When Grant Gustin was the Flash, they were like, and Ezra Miller is going to be the new Flash. We were both like, why have they overlooked these people? Why have they overlooked these people? And Ezra Miller was on the screen, and in that one film, and yeah, that was it. Like, the Flash obviously has gone off a cliff. That's a completely separate issue, but yeah, that's why. If anyone was wondering why, that's why. Obviously, there is no Green Arrow, and Stephen Owen might have done very well on the big screen, but that's why. So yeah, that's a tragedy. We're not going to get Ezra Miller's Flash. Bigger tragedy, we're not going to get a big screen Flashpoint film. But the cherry on that shit cake is that no Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne as Batman, which would have been phenomenal.
Amazing.
Oh, it would have been so good.
It might have become, you know, I might have preferred Thomas Wayne over Bruce Wayne.
I mean, we were so close. We were so close.
They could have even cast him as Bruce Wayne. Like, forget Robert Pattinson. Just put Jeffrey Dean Morgan in there. Give us a Jeffrey Dean Morgan Batman.
He would have been, he would have been more likely to have signed on for like 7 films than Ben Affleck. That Bruce Wayne, the DCU one, that would have been special. But yeah, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, he's a special kind of guy. I've seen him in interviews as well. An absolute delight.
Yeah, I always like that because, I mean, so often, particularly these days, we have these celebrities who turn out to be absolute shit people. I get like so disgusted, mostly with the men. They're just like, why is it so difficult for you to be a decent human being? And when you come across, it's one of the things I like about the MCU is like all of the actors are so lovely and they have such mutual appreciation for each other. Like it's really great to see that positivity, and I like that about Jeffrey Dean Morgan as well, especially because he plays like these really sort of rough around the edges characters, but then you see him in interviews and he's just pleasant as hell.
Yeah, I really want to watch Watchmen now. So yeah, I mean that's my team. If you exclude Natalie Emmanuel, my team, the age range is like 38 to 62. I didn't actually check John Lithgow's age, but
I think he's in his 70s.
Yeah, I was going to say must be older than those two, but I've actively tried to bring it back to basics. One of the things I disliked most about everything from First Class onwards was they were quite young.
It reminded me of the Teen X-Men cartoon, which I did enjoy. It was fun, but there are things that you're willing to watch on TV because they're fun and kind of silly and whatever that you don't necessarily want from your cinema experience. I like the original trilogy of X-Men more than like the kind of First Class series of X-Men. I feel like the original trilogy is a bit closer to the comic book versions of these characters, and again, like you said, with them being a bit older and kind of more established, because basically, like, I mean, in the first trilogy, everybody knew their powers. Rogue was the only one really sort of figuring out where she was coming from. And you know, Wolverine was trying to like find his identity, but like everybody was comfortable in their abilities and their powers. They were already a team, and I liked that. We get a lot of origin stories, and I think in superhero movies they need to start trying to figure out ways to tell these stories differently. Like, I really appreciate the fact that we didn't get Tom Holland's origin story as Spider-Man. You know, I mean, we got kind of him becoming Spider-Man, but we didn't get the whole bitten by a spider, blah blah blah, Ben's death, that kind of stuff that we've seen and read a million times before. And if DC would kind of learn that lesson with Batman, that would be awesome.
You know, if you have to, give us 6 comics, maybe. Give us a limited run of comic books that explain, for instance, Tom Holland's origin, if we have to have it, but we don't need it in the film.
Or even like a you know, a webisode kind of mini thing, because they have one for Far From Home, kind of a promo little mini clip of Peter getting ready to go to Europe. Yeah, and you know, you easily do something like that. Fans will watch it. They'll like go to YouTube or whatever and watch these, you know, like 15-20 minute little snippets. But yeah, we don't need it in the main films.
I don't need this X-Men team to be learning on the job. I want them to be pre-established, like X-Men 1 with Patrick Stewart. Like the Xavier Academy or whatever it's called. I can't remember the name of it.
Xavier Academy for Gifted Children.
Something like that, yeah. It exists. There are students there. It's not the founding of that. Jean Grey's there as a teacher. Scott's there as a teacher. Storm's there as a teacher. Just give us that. Let's just, in media res, let's like dive straight in. I want this to be like a team-up movie without the origin stories. I want them to be going straight in again.
Well, and I think at this
big
stage, because God, how many X-Men films do we have at this? We don't need any more origin stories. Yeah. We've done that already. Even, I think, the X-Men are probably the most well-known Marvel characters prior to the MCU. Everybody knew who the X-Men was. We've had the cartoons. We've had several cartoons. Had several different runs of comic books. We've had, a plethora of films. Most people know who the kind of staple X-Men characters are. We don't need origin stories. Just jump right in, get the story going.
Yeah. Should we move on? Should we start doing some reviews?
Yeah, let's talk about the Orville.
I liked season 1, but I loved season 2. My one issue with season 1 was the character of Lara Katan. She was very one note. The whole point of her was this very strong woman who was bad in relationships, and that was kind of all we ever learned about her. Her solo episode was her, guess what, losing her strength, and it was on the mental side, and she was in this program and she kind of regained her mental strength, and that was it. That's kind of her whole season. Yeah. Would you open this jar of pickles for me like 3 or 4 times?
I know.
That was kind of it. Season 2, guess what? She loses her strength. This time it's in her solo episode, she loses her physical strength because of different gravities and her kind of getting weak, and so she was sent to her home planet to get stronger again, and she gets her strength back. And at that point I was thinking, oh Christ, please just stay home. Like, I don't need this. That's your only thing. If she had another origin episode, another solo episode, it probably would have been something to do with her relationship status, because that's all people talked about regarding her. Thank God she stayed on Saleya.
Yeah.
She's Saleyan. And she was replaced with another Saleyan who just was...
She's more interesting.
Just more interesting across the board. Like, just 3-dimensional, absolute badass. Do you remember that episode where Lara was sat in the captain's chair, and when they were locked in the zoo, and she was like, no, the Admiralty wants me to do this, and she had this kind of inner turmoil. The new one, whose name is Tala Kiali, sat in the chair. First thing she does, blast that tractor beam, which is stopping the pod going down to where all the Muckland females live. Didn't care, didn't ask questions of the Admiralty, blow up that laser. So she's infinitely more interesting to me. And we now have a full team of people I'm kind of in favour of. The one weak link was kind of cut out, and she's been replaced with someone better.
See, I think I preferred season 1 to season 2. Largely because I felt that a lot of, kind of as you mentioned with Alara, a lot of the episodes, the kind of standalone episodes in season 2 were basically a repeat of what they did in season 1, and they weren't really covering any new ground. It was just kind of a repetition of what had worked before, so I found that a little less interesting. I did not like the relationship between the Doctor and Isaac.
Oh God.
And I mean,
she's the most learned person on that ship. Surely.
See, it could have been interesting. They could have done interesting things with it, but they reduced it to basically, they start out with the fact that, she's a single mom because she wanted kids, but she could never find a man, so she ends up with this robot guy. They kind of framed it as, this is the best she can do, and it was sort of kind of a joke, rather than talking about the complexity of, AI life forms versus human, and, what makes a sentient being a sentient being, and can an AI life form be in a relationship with a human, for example. Then they also kind of made her, in season 1, she was kind of, I'm not going to take any shit. She was very assertive, very confident in herself. And in her relationship with Isaac, she kind of became very whiny and, pay attention to me kind of thing. And I felt like they took something from the character and just weakened her, and that really annoyed me. I also did not the Kaylin 2-parter was really interesting and got really dark for a minute, and then they just totally backpedaled and ducked out of it, and it was basically kind of none of it happened, and so I found that kind of disappointing.
Yeah, the Kalon 2-parter, I'll talk about my opinions on that now. I think it was episode 8 and 9. The idea of going to Kalon, where nobody from the Union, I don't think, had ever been before. And underground, they found these subterranean, graves where billions of organic life forms. And you find out that the Kalon had slaved the people who built them because they were being oppressed. They were, built to serve. And then they decide that they now want to go and, go out into space because they've got all the information, all the resources they've got from this planet, and now they want to do their expansion. And they flew towards Earth, and Kelly and Malloy managed to get this pod out to go to the Krill to say, the end of my enemy is my friend, and try and unite against the Kalon. And then they sent out this message using Ty to Earth, to the Union, saying we're bringing the 13-button salute bit, and then they had all the ships in front of Earth, and then that battle, that whole 2-parter, the whole story across that, honest to God, like, it impacted me more than anything in Game of Thrones Season 8. Either Battle of King's Landing or Battle of Winterfell. Seeing, like, the Union being hopelessly outgunned in front of Earth, but they were just going to, like, absolutely die trying to take down the Kaon. I really enjoyed. From episode 1 of Season 1 to, like, the final episode of Season 2, Isaac hasn't changed at all. Like, no matter what the show will try to tell us about him learning or him softening or him kind of falling in love with the Doctor, he has in no way changed. And I agree with you, like, that was a real missed opportunity. And the fact that he basically betrayed all of mankind and then they forgave him and didn't decommission him was absolutely beyond belief. But that Kaelon two-parter, I thought was really special television. I think that Kaelon two-parter might be like the best thing I've seen on TV this year. Of anything I've seen on TV this year. I greatly enjoyed it. And just having the Krill. It was like in Lord of the Rings where Gandalf like rides in, just when you think the battle is lost, Gandalf rides in with his whole new army. When the Union were losing and the Krill just all came in. Like they've been the enemies on this show since like day one. And the Krill came in to save the day, and that planted the seed that there could be like peace talks between the Union and the Krill. I just thought it was beautiful. And yeah, not a perfect season, but those 2 episodes, I think we got a completely different take on them. And yeah,
I mean, I enjoyed the episodes, but the way they ended the story basically ruined it for me.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, because the way they ended it, I will agree, was awful.
Like
it was going mankind.
Yeah,
and
like it was going really, really well, and it was really interesting. It was really dark. It was, you know, really great television. Definitely the best 2 episodes of the Orville, both seasons. But then they just completely fumbled the ending, and that, like, it does. If the ending's not great, then that really ruins the story.
Yeah. I wanted Isaac to... I don't at this point believe it's possible, but I wanted Isaac to, I don't know, learn something from this mistake, like learn some kind of, or be in some way apologetic, or, you know, maybe even do like self-imposed exile or decommission himself, but none of that happened. But it was...
Yeah, because, I mean, you think about the Star Trek characters like that, both Spock and Data learn and change and evolve and adapt, and that makes them interesting. You know, neither one are perfect, neither one gets the humanness quite right, but they aren't completely unchanged by their environment and the people around them. And I think that is a signifier of intelligence, whereas Isaac just kind of comes across as arrogant and full of himself because it's like, you know, oh, well, I'm a computer, so I'm better. Whereas you can see in both Spock and Data that the intelligence is very evident there, and they're making use of that intelligence, and their arrogance isn't just them saying all the time, I'm better than you, which is basically all Isaac does.
Yeah.
And that's why I find him an uninteresting character.
Yeah, he is a largely uninteresting character. And I think, yeah, that was his way to redemption, I think, the kind of relationship with the Doctor. But that, unfortunately, didn't pay off. They didn't really follow through with that. Even after he broke her heart, he, like, you know, dumped her. She was sad, and then he was kind of malfunctioning slightly. He did, like, a miscalculation. Then he got back together, and you thought, okay, maybe this is it. But again, it was just exactly the same. I think that can be the problem sometimes with different people writing different episodes. Sometimes the connective tissue feels a little bit off. One thing I really liked as well was Malloy, like an equivalent of like a TIE fighter. Because obviously Krill are like a warring people. The Union, I don't think they have an equivalent. They have like little transport buggy ships. But he was like an equivalent of a TIE fighter fighting against the Kaelon.
It's an enjoyable show. It's kind of fun to watch and just sort of veg out to. I mean, I know you're like really, really into it. For me, it's more kind of like I get in certain moods where I'm like, you know, I'd really like to watch some Orville right now. But it's not a show that I sit there and go like, oh, I can't wait until the next Orville comes around.
Yeah, there's only one other episode I just want to quickly mention, and it was when he fell in love with a dark matter cartographer, and it turned out to be the Krill woman from season 1. He just is determined to kind of build these... I think it says a lot about him as a captain. He's determined to kind of build these relationships between people that are so resistant to peace. He's a very flawed captain. I'm not saying he's a perfect captain, but I like that they work together. And even when he saved his captive's life, basically, he took her back to the ship and freed her. And that was a show of kind of willing to the Krill. I like to think paid off 4 episodes later when the Krill were receptive to this idea that the Kaelon were the real enemy. I like the idea of the Geloja, where it was like they basically crowded around to watch Bortus pee off a cliff. I like that Bortus got a mustache for an episode. These are very kind of like Family Guy, one and done kind of ideas. I liked him and Clyde getting addicted to smoking. I like the Catrudian, the huge flower that could talk to people that Cassius sent to Kelly to kind of, when they broke up, I like that. I like the Muckland divorce is like a knife through the heart. I like that Patrick Warburton was the voice of the interim security chief, Joe from Family Guy. I like that Ted Danson is one of the admirals now. I like the episode where there was the Gilliac, which I thought was quite an interesting concept. One of the women was about to give birth, and Bortus like, is there an egg? And everyone's like, no. And I like the fact that Bortus downloading porn basically nearly cost the lives of every member of the Orville. Because he had a pornography addiction.
It's a very valuable lesson to learn. Like, if you're going to download porn, virus protection.
Yeah. I find it funny, I find it charming, I find it interesting, and I also think it hits a lot of the sci-fi notes that I need in my life that nothing else is really hitting at the moment. I really enjoy it, and when I finish an episode, I am actively looking forward to the next episode. If you are in any way a kind of Star Trek, sci-fi, I would absolutely give this your time.
As a huge Trekkie kid, the things that I enjoy about the show is that it really is an homage to these kind of space operas that we grew up with, and you can see a lot of that in the characters and the plots. I think at times, I didn't feel this during season 1. During season 1, I felt that it was a completely unique thing. In season 2, I felt that at times they're trying to copy a bit too much rather than be their own thing. And like I said, it's a fun show to chill out to, but I'm not like waiting in eager anticipation. I think for me, a lot of the humor I find very childish. But again, I prefer more kind of like dark comedy, that like dry satirical kind of thing, more than the slapstick guy peeing off a cliff thing.
Yeah. See, that's my brand entirely. It's weird because I actually found this to be a lot less funny than season 1. They kind of sacrificed humour in terms of more serious elements. Would you disagree with that then? So I found this to be a lot less sort of one-liners in this. I thought it was they kind of actively tried to be more sci-fi this time, doing like, tapping slightly into time travel.
I think Seth MacFarlane just can't help himself.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
That's basically what I think. I preferred the humor in season 1 to the humor in season 2. I felt a lot of the season 2 humor was kind of not necessarily one-liners, but like one shot and done kind of thing. There wasn't any sort of deeper thought behind it or any sort of subtlety to it. It was just kind of like, oh, Bortus is addicted to porn and that's funny. Okay, fine.
So move on.
Yeah. So Krypton, episode 3. I was surprised that this was only the 3rd episode. It feels like the season has been going on forever.
100,000 years. It's a bit peculiar because it feels like, I think last week I said, just all exposition. And this week it was just all exposition, except the Lobo story, which was, again,
my favourite part is Lobo.
He's getting a spin-off TV show.
Is he?
Yeah, it's insane.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'll watch that.
On the strength of two episodes.
His character is fantastic. Yeah. And the guy does, when he got himself into the protected shield and was basically just shoulders and a head. Yeah. And it was just like, hey, I told you I was getting in.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Just... Like reptiles, if they lose a tail, the body regrows the tail, but he loses an arm, and the arm, instead of Lobo regrowing his arm, the arm regrew a Lobo. Lobo shot himself in the head to kill himself on the other side of this protective wall, so that the arm that was within the kind of birthing chamber could grow another Lobo. Beautiful. That is beautiful. So you've got this, it's funny, it's kind of feels like what the story is actually about. And on the other side, we're at a Wag Thor and on Krypton, and it's the most dour, boring, exposition-heavy stuff.
And we had again the same conversation between General Zod and Lyta. Oh, she's the most important person to him, but she's really an asset and needs to be utilized in the field. It was like literally almost verbatim the exact same conversation they had last episode, which was just kind of like, why give us an entire scene that's basically a repetition of an episode that you did last week?
It's such a tale of two stories, really. It's just something quite funny, quite enjoyable, and then just such exposition heavy lifting.
And I have to say, I was actually impressed with the guy who plays Seg, his Brainiac interpretation. I was like, damn, that's impressive.
So he managed to extract Brainiac, managed to get back to Krypton using the Zeta Beam with Adam Strange, and Lobo's left. And presumably Lobo's going to stay there for a time to fight Brainiac. And it's going to be a lot less fun, the show moving forward, which it was barely fun to begin with. Disappointing.
Yeah, I'm not super thrilled with it.
I have the feeling we're not going to get to the end of this season in the podcast.
I don't know, I feel like we started it, so we should finish it.
Yeah, probably,
Yeah, well, and, summer's kind of
sparse
anyway. Yeah. But yeah, I think if it was a different time of year and we had more things on offer, we probably would not be pursuing Krypton.
Yeah. There are elements of this I like, I like Lobo, I like Brainiac, I like Doomsday, but all we're getting is very petty, small conversations about skirmishes and rebellions, not even on Krypton, we're on Wag Thor, one of its moons. I just want it to be kind of focusing back where the fun stuff is.
Yeah, I think it needs to be more action-oriented.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the strength of the first season, and I think they need to return to that a bit more instead of having people just standing around discussing things we already know, basically. Yeah. And, lots of shots of Nyssa Vex standing there being tortured because, Zod has her baby, but she's really aligned with the rebels, and she's supposed to be betraying them, and Seg's gone, and like, her daddy issues. One
of the criticisms I think the prequel Star Wars trilogy had was that it was so, like, political, and there was so many conversations, like, between councillors about, like, law and issues of state and stuff like that. Do you remember, like, that huge chamber, and they were the little flying things, they'd come out to meet each other to have these conversations? This kind of feels like that. People are talking about political ruminations, and it's very boring.
It is
the things they're talking about, the kind of skirmishes and what it will mean for society, and
because we don't see these skirmishes. Like, if you want to talk about skirmishes and things like that, like, show us what's happening. Don't just have characters standing there saying, oh yeah, this, like, big thing happened over there off screen.
It's very boring. So yeah, give us more Lobo, or give us like a big Brainiac versus Doomsday fight or something. Or maybe, here's an idea, let's try and solve why the fucking Zod emblem is on Superman's cape. How about that?
Well, I suppose because, Adam and Seg don't know that yet.
Does Adam know?
No, only we know that the Superman cape, because the cape is in the Fortress of Solitude, and they were in Kandor, so... They don't know that it changed.
I'm hoping episode 4 they notice that and they start doing something about it. Yeah, just...
I do enjoy the dynamic between Adam and Seg.
Yeah.
I think, like, those two actors work really well together. I think we just need more of that, less of the rebellion shit.
It's a very exposition-y, boring show at the moment.
And on that note, I kind of feel that way about Swamp Thing at the moment.
It's sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sad. They kind of kick the doors down to begin with. Hey, look at this dude. Look at this swamp guy. Oh, he's like green people walking around as well. I mean, the only interesting thing I think that happened this whole episode was that Alec can, like, look back in time by holding onto a tree. A guy said a very exposition-heavy line. These... I can't remember what type of tree. It was like a... Cypress tree. Are, like, super duper old. And by touching it, he can see what the tree has seen, like, hundreds of years ago. And so he can see what happened with Abby and Shauna about the day Shauna kind of went off the bridge and got taken.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I feel like they've given us a lot of interesting elements, like, Shauna reappearing in her mother's house. Like, that was really interesting and intriguing. We barely see Swamp Thing himself, like, ever, and I want more of him. But it's mostly, like, Abby looking into microscopes and the rich guy killing people. It's gotten very, very slow and drawn out, and I mean, at this stage, I'm wondering how they're going to make it to 10 episodes, let alone, like, the 13 they originally had.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what they sensed when they were making it. But anyway, let's try and fix the show. What does it need? Because what I think it needs is, instead of trying to solve out what this kind of infection is that's getting all the people, the show needs kind of case the weak villains, swamp villains, that Swamp Thing has to kind of defeat. The humans can't kind of get anyone.
Well, yeah, because I mean, we had the people who were going and depositing into things, and they've never actually stopped that, but they've stopped looking for those people.
Yeah,
we need like they just forgot about. Like, yeah, I think that's my feeling. Is they dropped a lot of hints in the first few episodes, and they've just kind of forgotten all of them. I want to go back to, like, that excitement in the first few episodes and the mystery and the, like, have a case of the week. If you want to talk about conservation, have him take on poachers, have him take on, polluters or, like, corporate dumping or, something like that. Don't just have Abby sitting in a lab talking about how there's this weird thing appearing in the swamp. Yeah, we know there's a weird thing appearing in the swamp.
We're getting too much of her kind of looking into microscopes. We're getting too much of the kind of... Is it the professor or the doctor that the rich guy has kind of hired? Yeah. We're getting a bit too much of him. I just want Swamp Thing to flex his muscles. I want to see what he's capable of. I want to see him going up and fighting maybe other supernatural elements in the swamp, or, like you said, poachers, something human, but him actually doing something. He's kind of walking around a lot, pondering his own existence, and we never need more than like half an episode of that. I mean, something quite extraordinary has happened to him.
We haven't even been witness to the extraordinary thing that's happened to him. We we had Susie telling us that he was about his emotional state. We didn't have anything from him. we didn't even get his first actual speech as Swamp Thing. We were told about it. And I think that's a huge mistake when you have a character like that, particularly a titular character like Swamp Thing. You need to give your audience access to them. You need to, like, we don't know anything about him. We don't really know anything about Alec Holland, like who he was before he became Swamp Thing, so we can't really say, oh, this is, you know, what he's gonna do. This is how he's gonna react to this. I mean, we can pretty much guarantee anytime Abby's in the swamp and screams something, he's gonna show up and save her, but I want more of him in the show, less of the geeky science stuff.
Yeah, I think the villain for this season, I think it's been kind of shown to be the rich guy. But I've always imagined that Abby would take him down. Maybe take him and maybe the wife down.
I don't think that you need Swamp Thing to take him down.
Yeah, and so my want is that can we have like Swamp Thing's villain established for the season? And if it is that guy, that's incredibly underwhelming. Is there like a leader of these green people that are walking around? He's one supernatural element, Swamp Thing, that's come out of the swamp. Who else is out there? Who obviously
what else is out there?
Yeah, who pulled
Shauna
under the water? You know, is it because he has to go up against something like on his level?
Yeah.
Whereas we presume Abby's going to end up taking down the rich guy.
To be honest, an old rich guy is not on the same level as Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, even just size-wise, like, Swamp Thing could just smack him and that would be it. Like, that's the end of the story. Or rip him into
4 pieces with very little thought. I think momentum's kind of dead at the moment, and it's going to be interesting to see how it picks up and which direction it kind of picks up. Stylistically, beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's
still beautiful.
All there. It just
looks great. We love the vines still.
Yeah.
We just want something to happen, because again, it was fairly exposition-y.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition. And, I mean, I did find, like, the bit of Swamp Thing that we got in this episode, I found it interesting. Like, I was very intrigued. I would have liked more action. Really, I want more Swamp Thing.
And so, the little girl, is she kind of... Shauna's like in her mind now, and they're morphing into each other. And
no, Shauna's gone now. She said she couldn't stay.
Yeah, and what was happening where you'd see the girl and then like you'd see Shauna? They weren't both there in the room together. What was kind of your interpretation of that?
I thought it was just to suit the visual medium, basically. Kind of remind us of who we were actually seeing. Maybe just to freak Abby out. I kind of wish they would have done one or the other, either just kept Susie or just kept Shauna.
Same. It was almost like a hallucination element, but there was no reason for her to be hallucinating. So that kind of just took me out of the story a little bit.
Okay, well that's our episode.
That's our episode.
We are also going to be doing a non-spoiler cast, which is also available tonight.
For Spider-Man Far From Home.
Spider-Man Far From Home, yeah, I should have mentioned that.
Buried the lead there. And then we're also going to do a spoiler cast for Spider-Man Far From Home.
Where you will get all of our unfiltered thoughts on Spider-Man Far From Home. Anyway, until then, you can check us out on Twitter at GeekNerdPod,
Facebook.com/TheGeekly,
and our Patreon is patreon.com/GeekNerd, where we will be in 6 weeks' time raffling off a super cool TTRPG game for you all, as well as doing some giveaways for our Twitter followers to celebrate our 1-year anniversary.
And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts,
Podbean,
Overcast. We're all of those places.
Anyway, that's our episode. See you next week.
Ciao for now.